Thanks for clicking this story. Don't forget to subscribe as you enjoy it. Colar and Emmy were inseparable from childhood. They were more than just friends, they were like brothers. In fact, the people in their town often joked, "If you see one, the other is never far behind." It was true. They attended the same school, played the same games, and even had the same dreams. Their bond was so deep that even their parents noticed. Colar's parents would sometimes say, "Emmy, you're like a son to us," and Emmy's parents would laugh, "Colar, you're a part of this family." They never imagined that this unbreakable bond would be tested by the forces of love, betrayal, and regret. As the years passed, they both worked hard. Colar dreamed of becoming a doctor, while Emmy wanted to be an accountant. They helped each other study, cheered each other on through tough exams, and celebrated their victories together. The whole town admired their friendship. Eventually, after high school, they both got into university. They chose the same courses, shared dorm rooms, and continued their journey through higher education side by side. When they graduated, Colar became a medical doctor, and Emmy achieved his goal of becoming an accountant. Life seemed perfect. It was during their time at university that Colar met Binta. She was beautiful, kind-hearted, and had a smile that could light up the darkest room. Colar was instantly drawn to her, and it didn't take long for the two of them to fall in love. Emmy was happy for his friend and often joked, "You two are perfect for each other." After finishing their mandatory service year as part of the Youth Corps program, Colar and Binta's love grew even stronger. They decided to get married, surrounded by their friends and families who wished them the best of luck. But life, as they say, can be unpredictable. Just a few months after their wedding, disaster struck. Colar was involved in a terrible car accident while coming back from the hospital. The doctors said he was lucky to be alive, but the bad news was that he wouldn't be able to walk for a while. They weren't sure how long it would take, but Colar would need time to heal. Colar was heartbroken. He had just started his new life with Binta, and now he was stuck in bed, unable to do the things he loved. His friends and family visited him constantly, offering support. But nothing could take away the feeling of helplessness that weighed on his heart. At home, Binta took care of him for the first week, but soon something began to change. She started to disappear for hours, going out without telling him where she was going. Little did Colar know, Binta's heart was about to stray from him in the most unexpected way. One day, when Binta went to the mall to buy something, she ran into someone she never expected, Emmy. The two of them exchanged polite greetings, and before they knew it, they were talking like old friends. Binta was happy to see Emmy and even laughed at a joke he made. Emmy, though, was surprised by how easy it was to talk to Binta. He hadn't seen her in so long, and a spark seemed to light between them. They exchanged phone numbers, and from that moment, their secret relationship began. It started innocent enough. Binta would visit Emmy at his office or meet him at the mall, and they would spend hours together. But as time went on, things began to escalate. Binta started neglecting Colar. She would abandon him in his bed and go to Emmy, leaving her husband to suffer in silence. She even visited him at night, when Colar was asleep, sneaking out of their home to be with Emmy. Meanwhile, Colar was oblivious. He had no idea that his wife had been seeing someone else. He was focused on his recovery, though it pained him to see Binta become more distant each day. Binta thought she was being careful. After all, Colar had his own struggles to deal with. His recovery, his medical appointments, and the constant stream of visitors who came by to check on him. She thought she could sneak away and meet Emmy without anyone noticing. But deep down, a guilty feeling began to grow inside her every time she left Colar behind. Emmy was a different man now. He wasn't the shy, reserved friend he had been when Colar and Binta first met him. His charming smile and confident demeanor had changed, and it made Binta feel something she hadn't in a long time: excitement. With Colar no longer able to be the active, lively man he once was, she found herself leaning on Emmy more and more. She justified her actions to herself. Colar would understand. "He's sick and can't walk. He wouldn't want to burden me." But in the deepest corners of her heart, She knew what she was doing was wrong. She knew that something was about to break, but she didn't know what or when. Colar wasn't blind. He had started to notice things. Binta's late-night outings. Her distracted attitude when she came home. The way she seemed less affectionate toward him. At first, he told himself it was nothing. She was just tired. After all, taking care of him was a huge responsibility, and maybe she needed some time for herself. But as days passed, something inside him began to change. His doctor had told him that he was healing, and it wouldn't be long before he could walk again. But the emotional pain was harder to heal than his body ever would be. One night, after Binta came home from another one of her mysterious trips, Colar quietly watched her as she went to bed. Her actions didn't match the love they once shared. "What's going on, Binta?" he thought. "Why are you so distant?" It was a stormy Saturday afternoon when Colar decided to confront the truth. He had been pretending for weeks that everything was fine. But the cracks in their relationship had become too big to ignore. As Binta was in the kitchen preparing lunch, Colar finally asked, "Where do you go every time you leave, Binta?" Binta froze, the knife she was holding almost slipping from her hand. She turned slowly to face him, but her eyes wouldn't meet his. I just go out for walks, Colar. You know, to clear my head," she stammered. Colar's heart sank. This wasn't the woman he married, he thought. "She's lying to me." "I've been noticing things," Colar said quietly, his voice shaking with emotion. "You're not the same, Binta. I know you're hiding something from me." Binta's face turned pale, and she felt a cold sweat break out on her forehead. This is it, she thought. He knows. Before she could say anything, Colar stood up from his bed and walked slowly to the door. It was hard, but he knew he couldn't live in denial anymore. "I know everything," he said quietly, his voice filled with pain. "I know about you and Emmy." Binta's world came crashing down. She had never expected Colar to find out like this. Her betrayal was now out in the open, and there was no turning back. She tried to apologize, tried to explain that it hadn't meant anything, but Colar wasn't listening. The pain in his eyes told her everything she needed to know. He couldn't forgive her. Not now. Not after everything they had been through. "I don't even know who you are anymore," Colar said, his voice shaking with anger and heartbreak. "Get out, Binta. I can't be with you." And just like that, Binta was no longer part of his life. She gathered her things and left, her heart torn in a million pieces. She had lost the one person who had always been there for her. But somehow, she couldn't stop herself. She didn't know why she had done what she did with Emmy, but now it was too late to fix it. Emmy was driving home, his mind swirling with guilt. He had always been Colar's friend, and yet, here he was betraying him. The weight of what he had done was unbearable, and as he drove, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was going to happen. "I messed up," he thought. "I ruined everything." His heart raced, and just as he turned a corner, he didn't see the truck coming from the opposite direction. There was no time to react. The crash was sudden and violent, and Emmy's life ended in an instant. When Colar heard the news of Emmy's death, it hit him harder than he expected. Despite everything that had happened, he had still considered Emmy a brother. And now that brother was gone. The pain of losing him added to the heartbreak of losing Binta. Colar felt empty, like he had lost everything. But as Colar began to process the loss, something changed in him. He realized that he couldn't let the past control him. He had to move forward. His recovery from the accident was almost complete, and now it was time for him to rebuild his life. Months passed, and Colar slowly started to heal, not just physically but emotionally. He focused on his work as a doctor and tried to put the memories of Binta and Emmy behind him. But deep down, he knew he couldn't forget the pain they had caused him. One day, as Colar was visiting a hospital ward, he met a nurse named Ada. She was kind, gentle, and had a warmth that reminded him of the love he once had with Binta. Ada had her own past. She had faced her own heartbreaks and losses. But when Colar looked at her, he saw something different. He saw hope. Ada was different from Binta. She didn't try to hide anything from Colar. She was open, caring, and willing to help him through his struggles, not just as a patient but as a person. Slowly, Colar found himself drawn to her, and he couldn't deny the connection they shared. As weeks went by, Colar's feelings for Ada grew stronger. He began to realize that maybe he could love again. Maybe there was hope for his heart after all. It wasn't long before Colar confessed his feelings to Ada. He told her about the pain he had gone through, about Binta's betrayal, and about how he had thought he would never be able to love again. Ada listened patiently, understanding his pain. Then she smiled softly. "Colar, I know what it's like to hurt. But you can't let the past hold you back. You deserve to be happy." Her words touched him deeply. He realized that he wasn't alone. And for the first time in a long time he felt like he had a future. Colar and Ada's relationship began to blossom slowly but steadily. Colar had been through so much, and though he hadn't completely healed from his past, Ada gave him the strength to move forward. Every day, she brought him a little closer to the man he used to be. A man filled with hope, ambition, and a desire to build a future. Ada was everything Colar needed in a partner. She listened to his fears, understood his pain, and treated him with the care and tenderness he had longed for. In her, he found not just a companion but also a friend who had faced her own struggles but was still willing to love with all her heart. As the days passed, Colar felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: peace. But deep down, he also knew that he had to face the ghosts of his past before he could truly move on. He couldn't allow his past relationships, especially with Binta, to haunt him forever. One afternoon, as Colar was at the hospital, a familiar face appeared at the door. It was Binta. Her appearance shocked him. He hadn't seen her since she had left their home after the confrontation. I had to see you, Colar," Binta said quietly, her eyes filled with regret. Colar's heart raced. He wasn't sure what to expect, but he wasn't ready to face her again. He had moved on. At least he thought he had. "What do you want, Binta?" Colar asked, his voice cold but composed. "I know I've hurt you. I know I made a terrible mistake," Binta said, her voice trembling. "I regret everything. He's gone. And I can't forgive myself for what I did to you. I was selfish." Colar looked at her, but his heart was no longer filled with the love he once had. All that was left was a hollow ache. "You can't undo what you've done, Binta," Colar said, his voice firm but filled with sorrow. "You destroyed our marriage, and you betrayed me. There's no going back." Binta's face twisted in pain, but she understood. She had lost him forever. Binta left, and Colar felt a sense of relief wash over him. He didn't need closure from her anymore. He had found it within himself. Ada had already helped him heal in ways that Binta never could. But Binta's emotional storm wasn't over yet. Feeling the weight of her guilt, she went to visit her best friend, Joy, seeking comfort. They sat together in Joy's apartment, arguing about the mess Binta had made of her life. Joy, who had always been a fiery and hot-tempered friend, was furious with Binta. "You ruined everything, Binta. You destroyed Colar's life and Emmy's. And now, you're sitting here crying about it." Before Binta could respond, Joy stood up, fuming. "You deserve this. You don't deserve happiness." And with one swift motion, Joy slapped Binta across the face with a wooden stick. The blow was so forceful that it knocked Binta to the ground. Her head slammed against the floor, and everything went dark. When Binta woke up, she was disoriented. Her head ached, and there was a strange emptiness in her vision. She reached out and felt around, only to realize she could see nothing with her left eye. Panic set in as she struggled to get up, but it was no use. Her eye was gone, she had been blinded. "Binta," Joy's voice echoed from somewhere in the room. "I didn't mean to hurt you like this. I couldn't stand what you did." Binta's heart sank as she touched her face, realizing the extent of the damage. Her left eye was permanently gone, and she could no longer see from that side. She had paid the price for her betrayal in the most unforgiving way. As she sat there in shock, she realized that everything she had done had finally caught up with her. She was alone, with nothing but regret and the harsh consequences of her choices. Back at Colar's house, Ada continued to stand by his side, helping him heal from both his physical injury and emotional scars. She had become not only his partner but also his best friend. And now, Colar had to make an important decision. He had been thinking a lot about the future. The pain from his past was still there, but it wasn't as strong as it had once been. Ada had been his anchor through it all, and he knew that she was the woman he wanted to spend his life with. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, Colar turned to Ada and smiled. "Ada, I've been through so much, but you've been the light in my life. You've helped me find peace again. Will you marry me?" Ada's face lit up, and tears filled her eyes. "Yes, Colar. Yes, I will." Colar and Ada's wedding was a small, intimate affair, surrounded by close friends and family who had supported them both through their struggles. Colar couldn't believe how much his life had changed in such a short time. He had gone from being broken and alone to being filled with love and hope again. As they exchanged vows, Colar couldn't help but think back on everything he had been through. The pain, the heartbreak, the betrayals. It all seemed so distant now. In Ada's arms, he had finally found peace. A year after their marriage, Colar and Ada were blessed with a beautiful baby boy. Their lives were filled with joy, and Colar couldn't help but smile every time he looked at his son. Life had come full circle, and for the first time in a long time, Colar felt like everything was right in the world. Ada was the perfect mother, and Colar was the proudest father. Together, they made a family that was built on love, trust, and the lessons they had learned from their past mistakes. Months passed, and Colar thought he had put his past behind him. But one day, he received a letter from Binta. She wrote to him, telling him how much she regretted everything that had happened. She spoke of her struggles and the guilt that consumed her every day. "I can't change the past, Colar," she wrote. "But I want you to know that I've learned from my mistakes. I will live with the consequences forever, and I just hope that you can find happiness." As Colar read the letter, he felt a mix of emotions. He didn't want to go back to the past, but he also understood Binta's pain. She was paying the price for her actions, he thought. Maybe that's the only thing she can do now. Though Colar had forgiven Binta in his heart, he still struggled with forgiving himself. There were days when the memories of his broken marriage and betrayal would creep back into his mind. But he had Ada and he had his son. They were his future now, and he knew that dwelling on the past would only hold him back. Colar realized that he had to forgive himself for what had happened. He couldn't change the past, but he could control the future. With Ada by his side, he felt ready to face whatever came next. Moral lessons. The story of Colar, Emmy, and Binta teaches us profound lessons about love, betrayal, and redemption. One key lesson is that true friendship and love should be built on trust, loyalty, and sincerity. Despite their deep bond, Emmy allowed temptation to destroy his lifelong friendship with Colar, proving that even the strongest relationships can be broken by selfish desires. Binta's betrayal also highlights the consequences of emotional neglect and dishonesty in marriage. Her actions not only shattered Colar's trust but also led to devastating personal losses, showing that impulsive choices based on momentary pleasure can have irreversible consequences. Another powerful lesson is the resilience of the human spirit and the possibility of healing after heartbreak. Despite his pain, Colar chose not to be consumed by bitterness. Instead, he found the strength to move forward and rebuild his life with Ada, demonstrating that true happiness comes from finding peace within oneself. Binta's suffering serves as a reminder that guilt and regret are heavy burdens to carry, and while redemption is possible, some mistakes leave scars that never fully heal. In the end, Colar's journey teaches us that forgiveness, both of others and ourselves, is necessary to move beyond the past and embrace a brighter future. Thanks for watching this story. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share to your loved one. See you in our next interesting story.